Our offensive players of the week were Michael Mennett. On defense was Jaquan Brisker. And on special teams was Jake Pinniger. I think the overall kind of factors in that game is we started fast. Obviously, went 1-0. I thought we were tough and physical against a team that I think is tough and physical. I thought we did that on both fronts, our O-line, D-line, really linebackers, tight ends, safeties. I thought a lot of guys, played really physical. I thought, some of our defensive statistics were pretty impressive. I think 45% of the plays in the games went for 1 yard or less. And I think 37% went for zero gain or negative yardage. I thought the backed up drive that the offense got the ball on, I think the -1 yard line, that went 11 plays for 89 yards. I thought that was a huge drive in the game. And then I thought, defensively in the first half, 2 turnovers on 4th down stops, 4 3-and-outs, and a total of 43 yards. And then obviously we're very proud of being part of the 900th win in program history and part of that 900-plus win club that Penn State is a part of. Opportunities for growth, we got to do a better job with the ball. We had done a really good job of, again, protecting the football, but that showed up again on Saturday with a fumble and a pass that was high that led to a tip ball into an interception. We got to eliminate the pre-snap penalties, but overall, again, since the first game of the year, we've been really good from a penalty standpoint, which is something we've done a good job of for 7 years. And we got to be better in details and execution in the passing game. When it comes to Michigan State, got a lot of respect for Mel Tucker in his career over the years. Obviously, his first year at Michigan State. I've known Mel before that. I actually, years ago, Mel and Alabama came and visited. Their defensive staff came and visited with our staff, and Mel was a part of that trip. Jay Johnson, the offensive coordinator, I think he's done a nice job. We have a lot of respect for their offensive line and their wide receivers. The wide receiver number 5, their wide receiver number 8, Jaden Reed and Jalen Naylor. And I think their offensive line and their defensive line, which I'll get to in a minute, are massive, big, strong, and physical. Their defense, Scotty Hazelton, the thing that really jumps out is their D tackles. I think their 4 D tackles and their 2 deep, I think, are 345 pounds, 340 pounds, 335 pounds, and 310 pounds in a 2 deep. So they are big and physical. We're impressed with the cornerback number 29, Shakur Brown, linebacker number 34, Antoine Simmons, who seems like he's been playing there forever, and then D tackle Naquan Jones and number 96, Jacob Panashuk. So impressed with those guys. And then Ross Ells, their special teams coordinator, does a good job, and those same wide receivers show up on special teams. So just kind of give you guys some updates. Again, appreciate you guys being on here, and open up the questions.
Elton Hayes, CNHI, Pennsylvania. Joe Giuliano, you're on deck.
Hey, James. Hope you're doing well this afternoon.
You too, Elton.
Coach, this morning we spoke with a couple of the seniors ahead of Senior Day this Saturday. This is a group that's experienced the highest of the highs, coming in here in 2016 and being a part of that championship team, Big Ten championship team, to the lowest of the lows with navigating, playing during a global pandemic and all the challenges that it's brought forth. Coach, you're around these guys all the time. You have been for the last 4 or 5 years. I wanted to just get your thoughts on their contributions to the program, and if any, maybe you've learned from their resilience that they've shown during this, especially this season.
Yeah, I think the way you described it is a good one. You're talking about a group of guys that were part of a Big Ten championship, some of them. I don't think there's been any other program in the league, in that period of time besides us and Ohio State that have won a Big Ten championship. You're talking about a group that won the Fiesta Bowl championship, Cotton Bowl championship. Talking about a group of guys that you could make the argument, maybe the most successful 4-year stretch in Penn State since joining the Big Ten. And those guys have been a big part of that, whether that was on the developmental squad, the scout team, giving looks to the offense and defense, whether that was on special teams, whether that was on offense and defense as backup roles or starters. And really, since this season has started, things that I've seen and heard in the locker room before games and after games has been really good. During challenging times. I also think about these seniors and the type of experience that they're having as seniors, and I sympathize with that. No fans at games, no parents to hug before the games. Even the senior day is going to be different. But I also think about the freshmen. At least the seniors can lean on those experiences that you mentioned. And I think about like the freshmen and the sophomores or the second year players. A good percentage of their Penn State experience has been this. It's been these very unusual circumstances. So I'm proud of those guys, and they've been there for the beginning. They committed to Penn State. During a time where the conversations that I was having with players was probably very different than maybe any college football coach in the country. Some strange conversations that we had to have. So I'm proud of those guys, and there's a lot of different stories when I look at the list, how they came here, what they've done over their careers.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer. Mark Brennan, you're on deck.
James, good afternoon, and thanks for your time.
Hey, Joe, you too.
I wanted to follow up on Elton's question, ask you about a specific senior, Shaka Tony. How have you seen him grow as a leader this season, and what has he done? What has his message been to the younger guys, keeping everybody focused and together?
Yeah, obviously he's changed dramatically physically since we recruited him as a 195-pound defensive end out of Imhotep Charter High School in Philadelphia. I think we originally committed him as a linebacker, and then he was, adamant that he wanted to play D-end, and we were open to that. And he's had a really good career from that perspective, and I think he's got a bright future. I think during the season, his message in the locker room, with our guys and with our team, before games and after games, after success and after setbacks, has been really strong. Shaka's got strong opinions and beliefs, and he's really handled those things the right way, during the season. And when I think about Shaka, I think about his whole family. I remember the recruiting trip with Shaka, and there was probably 15, 16 family members in his house. And I remember his niece, recording a video with me, and he's got an unbelievably supportive family. They're at all the games that they could be at. They're really supportive of him and really of Penn State overall. So I'm thankful and appreciative. I've learned a lot from Shaka. I hope Shaka's learned a lot from being a part of this program as well. And, it's really important to me that these seniors, we do everything we possibly can, starting with today's practice, to send them out the right way. You look back at the entire season, obviously there's a lot of things and experiences that we would have liked to have gone differently, some that were in our control and some that were not. So being able to try to send these guys out the right way, with at least these last two games, at the minimum, that we have.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247 with White on State. Greg Pickle, you're on deck.
James, you guys have always done a nice job with the pregame ceremony and whatnot. Do you have any idea how you're going to handle that? And one quick follow-up, is there any chance of any of these guys coming back, given the unique situation that you find yourself in? Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, good questions. The senior day is something that's always meant a lot to me and the parents, and our players. And, it will be different. We can't have the players, the parents on the field like we normally do. usually it's really cool. The cheerleaders form a line. We usually honor, I think, cheerleaders as well as managers, and the fans typically come early and show their appreciation and support for them. It's really pretty cool. I would ask, we've had a number of fans that have been awesome the last couple of weeks, and I think it's had a real difference for our team. Had a bunch of fans out at the airport, along the road, on the way to away games. Last week they were not far from where the buses were when we first pulled out of Lash with signs. If those fans plan on doing that again this week, I would love for them maybe to all do something for these seniors. Maybe divvy up all the seniors and do something, because I'd like for it to be special for them. In any way we possibly can, because there's not a whole lot we can do in the stadium that a lot of these guys have waited years to do. So we'll still do the calling their names out and bringing them out on the field. And at Penn State we're allowed to have the parents there, but they have to be in the stands. So we're going to try to make it the best we possibly can. And then I think, Mark, to your point, there's a lot of conversations that we always have at the end of seasons with young men and their families about, their futures. And obviously this year, with a lot of the things that are going on and some of the decisions that the NCAA made and that the Big Ten made, make those conversations a little bit different. And obviously, this season has had an impact on that as well. So there's some conversations that are going to need to have. I've also encouraged our assistants to start having these conversations on Thursday and Friday, not just about, their futures, but just in general, making sure that we're talking to our guys enough, during a time, again, where, those conversations are probably more valuable than ever. They're always important, but right now, more than ever.
Greg Pickle, Penn Live. John Petishnak, Football Letter, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, Coach. How are you?
Good. You too.
Thank you. Hey, I'm just curious what the challenges are trying to close a recruiting class during game preparation. Obviously, that's one of the unique factors of many this year. And then to kind of piggyback on Mark's question, how do you balance those conversations numbers-wise with the idea that some guys could come back? You're trying to finish out a recruiting class here. Just where do you guys stand with the class of 2021?
Yeah, so we've had really good conversations, and those guys have been great the whole time. And I think I mentioned, somebody asked me a similar question a week or two ago, and I just talked about our transparency, about just kind of letting them know what's going on and how we see their futures, and I think there's also been something that I think has been appreciated by our parents and by the recruits and the parents of our recruits, is our ability to keep our team and our program healthy. And again, I know the fans what their focus is, but that was always going to be a balance this year, is trying to balance those two things. And I think in some ways, that has helped us overcome some of the adversity that we've had, not only in our team, but also in recruiting. When it comes to, some of the numbers that you're talking about, we're going to kind of keep our numbers as they are. The way the NCAA did it this year, if the seniors come back, they don't count against you. So that would allow you to go over your 85. But this is a year that it's very, very challenging and difficult to predict with all of that. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But this is always going to be a small class for us, and with a lot of the unknowing out there, it allows us to continue that approach and maybe be a little conservative. And then, also the opportunity maybe to, bring some guys in as grad transfers and other things like that, that other programs have done.
John Petishnak, the Football Letter.
Good afternoon, James, and thank you for your time today.
You too, John. Excuse me.
What was the impact of having Devin back with the team on Saturday? both with his on-field production and also from an emotional standpoint with how everyone was supporting him as he deals with the death in the family.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of the specifics that he got into with you guys, and obviously out of respect, I won't do that. But yeah, there's there's Devin's story and how the team has been so supportive of him and how Devin has handled this, and Coach Sider has handled this, and how we've tried to be supportive. I had a conversation with his dad and stepmom last week, which I try to do that as much as I can. I don't want to ever overstep my bounds. I always ask ahead of time. But we had multiple things like that, throughout the season. This pandemic has created a lot of other health issues in people's families behind the scenes, whether it's grandparents, whether it's moms and dads, whether it's siblings. It's created a lot of things, and again, a lot of these families and a lot of these young men are having to do this on their own without the normal support that they normally would be able to get or provide. So the team's been really good about it, but all the way back to the beginning of the season, with us losing players, there's been a lot of emotional swings that the team has had to handle, and and in a lot of ways, I'm really proud of them.
Tyler Donahue, lines 247. Rich Scarcella, you're on deck.
Hi, James. Hope you're doing well. Tariq Castro Fields has traveled with the team 3 times in the last 4 weeks. You mentioned, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, that it was a medical issue. If he's not quite there yet, how frustrating has it been for your staff and for Tariq himself to kind of get to the edge and then have to stay to the sideline? And playing off of that, those second-year cornerbacks you've gotten, the play out of them you've seen, how far the step they've taken? You had Joey Porter as Big Ten Freshman of the Week.
Yeah, I'll start with those guys. It's been really cool to see those guys, really step up and take on a much more significant role in the team, and really, the last couple of weeks have really done a nice job. And obviously Joey got a bunch of attention last week, but Marquise has really done some good things. Hardy has made some big plays. You could make the argument in the last couple of weeks has had 2 sacks. Obviously, we had that one play where it ended up not being a sack, strip, fumble, and that whole interesting, sideline discussion and overturn with the batting ball play. But he's done some really good things, getting Keaton Ellis back, and really Keaton's ability to fight through some of the injuries that he had during the year was impressive, and they're all opportunities for growth. So I think that's a unit that we're excited about their future, and we're going to need them to step up and to continue to grow. But we would love to have Tariq back this week, and it literally each week he's been great in meetings. His leadership has been phenomenal. I think in some ways, sitting back and coaching and watching and leading, he's learned a lot about football. I think he's learned a lot about our team. I think he's learned a lot about himself. The conversations that I've had with Terry this week is we think there's a good chance that we're going to have Tariq this game. But it's similar to what it's been. It'll depend on how the week goes, and then also what our trainers and doctors and Tariq feel late in the week and come game day. But I know talking to Terry earlier this week, he felt like we're closer to actually getting it done, which I think would be a huge boost for our team.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle. Ben Jones, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. You have alluded to the sacrifices that you, your staff, your team has made. You've mentioned a few specifically. Are there, regarding the whole season, are there 1 or 2 that you can share with us? And have all those sacrifices been worth it to play this season?
That's a good question. I didn't hear you.
I stole it from somebody else on the beat.
Gotcha. It's a good question. I guess, Rich, right now in the heat of it all, it's hard to answer that. Because to me, I'm not just looking at it, from football. I'm looking at the whole picture. Obviously, when all these decisions were made, it was hard to predict on how this was going to play out. I mean, you look at the Big Ten in general. You look at the records in the Big Ten. Obviously, there's been a few programs that have been able to do it, but I don't know if there's ever been a year like this in the Big Ten from a competitive standpoint. Pretty much across the board. But it's hard to predict. And I to be honest with you, Rich, I think we're in a position where it's still hard to predict. What the future holds, when this is going to end, when this is going to change, how are we going to get back to normal? In terms of sharing some of those stories, I to me, that's up to the individuals when you guys talk to them. I know Devin shared some of that with you guys today. I'm very sensitive, Rich, like I would be with you. If you ever shared your personal information with me, I wouldn't share that. I don't give out people's phone numbers without asking first, So, I can speak, for myself, and I can speak for the things that I think we've already talked about with the staff and with the team, and really, the burden and the weight that Wayne Sebastianelli and Dr. Greg Billy and Andy Mutnam and all our trainers, the burden that they have felt, because their responsibility is to keep everybody safe and healthy, no matter what. And then my responsibility is to reinforce what they're telling me, and also to try to find a way to play football within those parameters. So it's been tough. I will tell you this, Rich. I can't tell you what I would do for a hug from my wife and daughters. Like, I can't express to you, so I want us to practice well today, and I want us to play well on Saturday. But there's also going to be a point where, when we get to the end of the season, for me to, and for our players and for the staff and for everybody, I'm very sensitive to it. How can we get everybody to their families in a safe way, and let them get some time before we come back to school and get back going on our off season and trying to get back to some normalcy. I think one of the big things for me, Rich, that I can speak on is not only getting down to see my family, but how can I get my family back here at some point? Like, how can they come back and do that and keep my daughter safe without really having, anywhere near here that can handle sickle cell. So, those are my personal experiences. But as you can imagine, Rich, there's probably 150 of those stories, in our program and team. And again, I don't want this to be about me, but I also don't want to share all these personal stories. I hope that answers your question, Rich, the best I can.
BenJonesStateCollege.com. Parth, you're on deck.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good, Ben. You?
No complaints. Brenton and Theo seem to be blocking people with a great amount of enthusiasm. How important have these past couple of weeks been for them, and how important will they be for them? I don't want to speak for Pat, but depending on what the tight end room looks like next year.
Yeah, I think Coach Bowen's done a really nice job of recruiting and developing that position. We're also excited about Tyler Warren. He's doing some good things. We want to obviously get those guys involved and continue to advance in the throw game. We got to do a better job there. There's no doubt about that. But they have done a really good job. I think you're exactly right. They have done a really good job of being physical with defensive ends, of being physical with linebackers. with doing it in situations where everybody in the stadium in a bad weather day or in a 4-minute offense, everybody knows we're going to run the ball, and they're sticking the nose in there and running their feet, and really two fairly young players, that's been really important to us. So I'm proud of those. Kuntz continues to get better and is doing some really good things. And I had a good conversation with him last week as well, because I still think he has so much room for growth and potential. So it's a good group. Tyler's done a good job of recruiting them. They've done a good job of developing them. They got a good mentality and approach. And I think that goes back to one of the stories that we were talking about before is, some of these guys like, Theo that, coming from Canada, how do we handle that with the borders being closed? And that's an example of, all these different stories that we have that we're trying to navigate with these kids of how we're going to, solve some of these challenges and issues.
Part the Padres, Center Daily Times. Corey Geiger, you're on deck.
Hey, Coach, appreciate the time this afternoon. Thank you.
You too, Par.
When your team started off 0-5, I believe you said a few times you wanted them to remember what it felt like to win. These past 4 or 5, 6 years when you guys did have a lot of success. In what ways have they done that these past 2 weeks? What did it take for your guys to kind of remember what those previous seasons felt like, and how did the seniors kind of lead that charge?
Well, I think for really 6 years, we had found ways to win, all different ways. Whether they were blowouts, or whether they were making critical plays at critical times, or whether it was a defensive, game that the defensive side of the ball, gave us the chance to win, or the offense had to score points to win, or special teams made a big play. We found ways to win the majority of the time over the 6 years. And early in the season, we weren't doing those things. We were doing the opposite. We were doing the things that get you beat with turnovers and penalties. So, we continue to talk about it and emphasize it like we always do. But we just started to do a better job of it. Even last week when we turned the ball over, we were able to get a turnover on defense. So, it's about emphasizing winning football and what that means and the importance of it, and everybody buying into it and understanding it. And obviously when you go to Michigan and get a win, during a challenging time at a place that's been hard to win, then you got a chance to build on that. And for us, that's what I'm trying to do, and trying to get the coaches to do and the team to do and everybody to do is, like, we don't need to be, at the top of the mountain, or we don't need to be at the end of the ride. We just got to take a step. We just got to keep taking positive steps in the right direction and stay very present. And that's how we build it, and getting everybody to understand that as well. And obviously, the veterans have been a big part of that since the season has started. Is helping everybody kind of understand that message. I would say that Shaka has been very vocal. I'd say Lamont has been very vocal. With those things in the locker room after games. But there's a number of guys. Michael Bennett. I can go on and on. With these guys that have really stepped up. And then you got guys like Isaac Lutz that has done it with their play. Isaac doesn't say a whole lot, but he's made some big plays for us over the last couple of weeks. Antonio Shelton's been very vocal. So again, this is medicine that we don't want to take, but we're going to learn from it, and we're going to grow from it, and I am determined that we'll be better because of it.
Corey Geiger, Nittany Sports Now. Audrey Snyder, you're on deck.
Hi, James. I hope you're well, and hope your family's doing well. That was very, kind of moving what you were talking about earlier with your wife and daughters. So,
you too, Corey.
With regards to a potential bowl game out there, everybody's making sacrifices. Is there any thought to just getting the season over with, as opposed to extending things with everybody hanging around for another couple of weeks and extending these sacrifices?
Yeah, fair question. I think when the Big Ten in the very beginning made some of the decisions they made and came up with the plan, obviously I don't think anybody kind of visualized this, that it was going to be this. And the amount of time that these players have been away from their families. I think about some of the interviews I've seen with the NBA players when they came out of the bubble and those types of things. And you're talking about pros and adults, or at least older young men. So yeah, I think right now we haven't really discussed those things, Corey. Every day, Chris Peterson usually comes into my office and tells me about a game that's been canceled, an NFL game that's been moved to a Tuesday night, or a wide receiver playing quarterback in the NFL. I mean, things that like things that none of us, not even you, Corey, I think could have imagined have gone on this year in the NFL and in college and high school. We got recruits that haven't played at all their senior years. We got recruits that have played half the year and have been shut down. It's just been a very, bizarre year. It's hard to sit here and say you could have imagined it. I don't know if I've said this to you guys before or not, but driving up into these stadiums, driving to the, the Big House and driving to Rutgers, and there's nobody on the road. There's nobody in the parking lot. I do my walk with Officer Monica before the game, and there's nobody in there. We're waving and saying thank you to cardboard cutouts, so it's just strange, So, we haven't talked about anything else because, bowl games keep getting canceled. Every other day you see bowl games getting canceled. There's no bowl requirements in terms of the number of wins this year. So it's hard to say, Corey. It's hard to predict. It's hard to know. And for us, we're just trying to control the things that we do know right now, which is today, which is Michigan State on Saturday, and then knowing that there's going to be a game after that. But to be honest with you, we don't even know that, Corey. It hasn't even been clearly defined from the Big Ten what that last week is going to look like. And I think the other thing is, when that was decided, I don't know if everybody kind of thought that the season was going to be like this. And the issue is, I think, the conference and the schools all made commitments that deal with TV and number of games that we said we were going to play and all those types of things. And that has an impact on it, all of it. So we'll see how it all plays out. But, what I'm focused on is trying to have the best Tuesday practice we can have and put our guys in position to play a tough, physical Michigan State game here on Saturday and try to send these seniors out the right way. So I hope that answered your question.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic. Neil Rudell, you're on deck.
James, you gave me a great segue to my question. Obviously, not to overlook.
That was the plan, Audrey.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Obviously, not to overlook Michigan State, but the logistics of Week 9. What do you know about it right now? How do you try and prepare when you don't know the opponent, and you've got the early signing period mixed in there? Like, what's that plan look like? How do you balance that?
Yeah, actually, you just helped me because I think somebody asked about an early signing period, and I don't know if I ever really answered that question either, so I apologize. I'll go back and answer that one too. But, I would assume that we're going to hear more about Week 9, here really soon, if not, later this week. I would think right after the game we'll have an idea. I would hope, but it really just hasn't been clearly defined yet. Obviously we had the model before the season started, but we've also heard stuff about maybe the Big Ten changing the model based on games being canceled and not meeting certain thresholds, and games that people want to be played based on that game's been played for 90-something years consecutively and they want it played. So, there's still a lot of things out there that we're not completely sure on. But again, it is what it is, and we'll deal with it the best we can. Back to the early signing period that you brought up and somebody asked earlier that I didn't finish answering. That's a challenge. We got to try to make it as special as we possibly can for those young men and their families and their high school coaches. But we got to do it on I think it's a Wednesday during a game week, which Wednesday is a huge work day for us. We usually have a staff meeting at 7 a.m. and we're doing football all day to get ready for that practice and finish the game plans. And now you're trying to do that on a day that's usually dominated on celebrating young men's and families' futures. So, we're gonna do the best we possibly can to serve those two groups. And I think a lot of it will be me and the recruiting staff allowing the offensive, defensive, and special team staffs to spend most of their day on football as normal as they would. But now, like when I do my call with a family and a young man at a certain position, then we'll just go grab that coach, with the recruiting staff for that 15 minutes, and then they can get back. Is I think how we're gonna try to do it as much as we can. It's just a fine line because we want to celebrate those young men and the choice and the decision that they've made. But we also have a responsibility to have a great Wednesday practice, and we're gonna have to get it done.
Neil Riddell, Altoona Mirror, Donnie Collins, you'll have our last question.
Hey, James. Wondering if you can assess Will Levis's development as a passer and how much you guys are working on that part of his game.
Yeah, I think in general we gotta be better in the passing game, and we gotta be able to push the ball down the field, and we got to be more efficient and more explosive in the passing game in general. I think to your point, and I've brought it up for a couple weeks. We gotta mix the pass in with Will. Will's doing a really good job helping us in short yardage situations or 4-minute offense, which the reality is that's a big part of how we wanted to use him. But we also want to be able to mix some of those other things in there because he's shown that he can do it and he deserves it. And it also, I think, will make us more explosive and make us more efficient. And keep people a little bit off balance and be a little bit less predictable. So he's done a nice job and he's earned that. And he's deserved that, and we need to do that. We're going to need both of those guys.
Last question will go to Donnie Collins, Times Tribune.
Hi, James.
Hey, Donnie.
We've all seen teams around the country handle adversity, the pandemic, a couple of losses here and there differently. You've seen some teams lose a couple of games and then a bunch of players opt out and things like that. And that hasn't happened to you guys. Why have you guys been able to stay together when other programs haven't?
Donnie, I think a few weeks back somebody asked me about culture, and that was more associated with the lack of success this season. And I think at that time I said, well, you can't just throw the culture around stuff when things are going well. You got to throw the culture around too when you're having challenges. But I do think that's a pretty good example. That although we haven't had the success on the field this year that we want, and there's a lot of reasons I can sit here and name why. And some people would say, there are excuses or this or that, and I could sit here and do that. But I also think, to your point, there's been some really good examples as well of this team sticking together, of this team battling back at a time where other programs aren't, with guys tapping out or opting out and those types of things, and our guys haven't done that. They've continued to battle, and I think that's a good sign about who our program is and what we've built here. And I also think it's going to be the same things that we're going to use to work through this and to get back to having the success that we had the 4 years before. I think that's really important. I think that's going to be something that I know I'm going to sit down with the team, hopefully before they all leave. We're going to do it by position, but hopefully as a full team as well. And that's going to be what we're going to do to build this thing. I think on January 19th, I think is the date that we start the spring semester. And what does the spring semester look like yet? I'm not completely sure, but those are the things that I think, the conversations that I'm going to have with the players, that I'm going to have with the staff, that I'm going to have with the administration, that I'm going to have with everybody to help us get back to the normal and the Penn State that people expect. And but I do think your point is a good one. There's been some cracks that have been exposed through this pandemic, but there's also been tremendous resiliency. I know this sounds strange, and I don't want this to be misinterpreted, but I'm also proud of that. I'm also proud of how we have battled a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges.
Thank you very much, Coach. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a good day, everybody. Stay safe and healthy.